guys, today we're going to take a look at the two texts that we have read this week. Oftentimes when we read two different texts, we'll recognize that they have some similarities between them. It can be something as simple as the theme, the characters, or the plots are very similar. Or it can be the author used similar craft moves in both of them. Today we're going to explore our two different texts, and we are going to compare and contrast them, tell how they're similar and different. Before we do that, let's review what compare and contrast is by watching this quick video. Let's get started.
Vocabulary. We're comparing and contrasting. Get it? Everybody's doing it. In fact, we do it all the time. We compare and contrast when we're in the store deciding what cereal to buy. We compare and contrast when we pick up what movie to see or what player we want for our fantasy football league. I'll break it down for you. Comparing and contrasting, get with it. That's when you think how things are similar and different. When I compare things, I talk about how they're the same. When I contrast, it's the differences that I name. I analyze how they're similar and different. I look at them close. Yeah, I get specific. I compare and contrast two books, three foods, two unicorn dudes named Opie and Stu. Yeah, that's how we do. But what's even wiser, before I write, I'ma use a graphic organizer, a Venn diagram. Yeah, I'll show you that. I just draw two circles that overlap. In the middle, I write whatever's the same, just list the differences in the other spaces. With three things to compare, what should I do then? I could add a third circle, so then let's get it in. I compare when I say how things are similar, like dollhouses and ponies, both miniature. I contrast when I say how things are different, give examples and get specific. You get it? I compare when I say how things are similar or the same. Yeah, I bet that sounds so familiar. I contrast when I say how things are different, give examples and get specific. You get okay? I have to write an essay. Here's the prompt. Would you rather be a wolf or a domesticated dog? Domesticated dog is like a pet. I'm gonna compare and contrast. That'll help me think. I use transition words to help my readers know that I'm comparing and contrasting. Here we go. First, I'll compare how they're the same. Both have fur coats for the wind, snow, and rain. Domesticated dogs love to play together. Similarly, both puppies will play in any weather. Pet dogs have paws, wolves do as well. Likewise, they both will eat meat. Can you tell? To see how they're different, let's contrast. Most wolves have longer teeth, and that's a fact. If a wolf gets sick, there's no medicine. In contrast, let's go to the vet. They let them in. Domesticated dogs don't worry about food. They get fed in the bowl. I bet they love it too. Unlike a wolf, which has to hunt, and if it can't find much food, they go hungry for months. A wolf can run free, do anything it pleases, while domesticated doggies are tied up with leashes. So while I might like to be a pet dog for a while, I want to be free. That's the call of a while. I'm a compare when I say how things are similar, like dollhouses and ponies, both miniature. I contrast when I say how things are different, give examples and get specific. You get it? I compare when I say how things are similar or the same. Yeah, I bet that sounds so familiar. I contrast when I say how things are different, give examples and get specific. You get it?
Now that we've watched that video, we now know that compare means when we tell how the two texts are similar or the same. Contrast is when we tell how these two texts are different. In order to get started, we're going to first refresh our memory of what we read. And before we do that, I would like to shout out one scholar who did an amazing job on their close reading yesterday. The person I would like to shout out is Anthony. Way to go, Anthony. Anthony did a great job of taking notes and adding comments throughout his work. He also made sure to add the character traits in his notes. He also went back and highlighted where he found the natural occurrence. He did an amazing job on his thinking job chart, and we'll go over that in just a minute. So in your close reading document today, you're going to see both texts so that you can reread them if need be. And you'll also see our two thinking job charts from Keanu and Anthony, our two scholars who did such an amazing job, so that we can jog our memory and remember what we've read before. So let's start with the riddle of the Sphinx. In the riddle of the Sphinx, we know that Oedipus is a prince and he's brave, and that there was also a Sphinx in the story who's half man and half woman, and they're kind of tricky. We know that the Sphinx is sent to torment the city and is gobbling up people if they don't solve this riddle correctly. The solution to this story is that the prince solves the riddle and the Sphinx falls to his death. We learn from the story to not be afraid and to be brave. Now, with how Ajapa the tortoise tricked the hippopotamus, we learn that Ajapa the tortoise is small, brave, clever, and tricky, while Isantim the hippo is mean and selfish and lives on land. We know that people are going hungry because because the hippo is keeping all the food and Ajapa's had enough. We also know that the animals don't know Isantim's name, and he doesn't let them eat because of that. In the end, Ajapa tricks one of the wives to say Isantim's name. And from this story, we learn that you can be brave and clever and big and strong. And our natural occurrence here, this was a tricky one because it's one of our first times practicing this, was that hippos are leaving the land, and it's telling really how or why hippos now live in water. It's giving us this backstory for why today hippos live in water. Is it true? No, it's a made-up story, but it's a fun way to think of it. Now that we've reviewed both texts, I want you to take about 30 seconds to compare the similarities. What is the same in both of these texts? You can think, do they have the same genre? What thinking jobs are the same? Their characters, motivation, problem solution, lesson learned. Just thinking about the similarities right now, not the differences. Go ahead and take a look and think for about 30 seconds. Now that you've thought of some similarities, go ahead and tell your turtle one thing that was similar about these two stories. One thing I know that is the same is, all right, so I have at least one thing in my head that is similar. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we are going to add to this chart. This is going to be our compare and contrast chart today. So instead of the two circles that you often see, today I made it like this so it would be a little bit easier to type into. So on one side, we're going to put differences for the riddle and the Sphinx. On this side, we'll put the differences for how Ajapa the tortoise tricked the hippopotamus. And for things that are the same, we'll put them in the middle under this both column. So one thing that I noticed is that both of these are types of fiction. When I was thinking about genre, I was like, oh, I know that both of these are fictional stories. I also noticed that both of our characters are very clever. So we know that IJAPA and Oedipus sometimes I have to look back and think about the spelling just like you guys do, are both clever. So we've thought of two things that they have that are the same. If you thought about some different things that made them the same, then that's awesome because you're going to practice doing some more similarities on your own in just a minute. Now that we've thought about some similarities between our two texts, let's think about some differences. So what's different? We can think about, is the genre different? Which thinking jobs are different? How are the characters, motivation, problem solution, lesson learned different? Go ahead and think about that. Take about 30 seconds to look this over and think about their differences. Good. Hopefully you have at least one difference in your brain. Go ahead and tell your turtle one difference between the riddle of the Sphinx and how IJAPA the tortoise tricked the hippopotamus. One difference between the two texts is one difference. All right. I have one. Hopefully you have one as well. So let's think, what's different? So I'm going to think about this genre thing again. I know that the riddle of the Sphinx is a Greek myth, which is a type of fiction. But I know that how IJAPA the tortoise tricked the hippopotamus is a folktale. I also noticed that in the stories that the Sphinx has a much worse consequence at the end than the hippopotamus does. So we know in the end the Sphinx dies, while in How IJAPA Tricked the Hippopotamus, the hippo just lives in water. So this is a worse consequence. And this is a lesser consequence. It's not as bad. If you ever spell something wrong, this is a great way to correct it. You just click on the word and it'll correct it for you. Cool trick. All right, awesome. So we've gotten started. We've identified two things that are similar about the text and two things that are different about the text. So we have 2, 2, and 2. Now, here is my challenge for you today. You can either use our 2 example thinking job charts, or you can use your 2 texts. And today you are going to add 3 more similarities and 6 more differences to your chart. So remember, you're going to write 3 more similarities, 1, 2, and 3. And you're going to add 6 more differences. So you might do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that makes a total of 9 more things that you are writing today. So think about it carefully. Maybe you told your turtle something that was different than what I said. That's a great first step. And make sure you are putting what is similar in the middle and your differences on the sides. I'm so proud of all the hard work you've been doing so far. I cannot wait to see the work that you do with compare and contrast today. And I Hope that you guys have an amazing day.